But if the police decide to issue me with a fixed penalty notice, I would, of course, do the right thing and step down. It's a breach of our borders. It's also, I think, a matter of national security, because the government should be deciding who comes to this country, and we need to know who it is that's coming.
Did you catch Starmer's face when he announced the snap election? Pure panic behind those rehearsed words. What the mainstream media won't tell you is that this wasn't a calculated power move. It was damage control. Inside sources reveal senior Labour MPs are jumping ship.
Which I think they're failing, but it is a test of anybody who wants to be in government. And I've looked very carefully at this. There are criminal gangs that are running this trade, making it to this country. So we have to deal with it. I take it very seriously. I accept it's a test of government.
With leaked emails showing a complete loss of confidence in his leadership. While he's busy unveiling his 6-point economic plan, his own party is plotting against him. Stay tuned as we expose what's really happening behind closed doors. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
A moment the country needs and has been waiting for. And where, by the force of our democracy, but no matter what else is said and done, that opportunity for change is what this election is about. Over the course of the last 4 years, we've changed the Labour Party. A chance to change for the better. Your future, your community, your country. Now, it will feel like a long campaign, I'm sure of that.
Behind the headlines and polished press conferences lies a very different reality for Keir Starmer. While mainstream media outlets paint his snap election announcement as a strategic masterstroke, those closer to Westminster's inner workings are witnessing what can only be described as a desperate last stand. The political landscape surrounding Starmer has deteriorated into what insiders characterise as a full-blown crisis that has the nation on edge. Let's be honest about what's really happening here. Starmer's carefully choreographed economic plan announcement didn't emerge from a position of strength, but rather from mounting panic within Labour's corridors of power. His popularity has been in freefall for months.
I believe that politicians who undermine that principle undermine trust in politics, undermine our democracy, and undermine Britain.
With party members increasingly vocal about their disillusionment, many are openly questioning whether Labour has lost its way under his leadership. The timing here is everything. Westminster sources confirm that Starmer's sudden election call coincides suspiciously with growing internal pressure and whispers of a potential leadership challenge. Rather than waiting for the rebellion to gain momentum, he's attempted to seize control of the narrative by forcing everyone into election mode. Remember that steady hand image Starmer worked so hard to cultivate? It's crumbled spectacularly amid allegations of mismanagement that have sent shockwaves through Labour's ranks. What's particularly damaging is how these internal divisions are no longer being contained, but are spilling into public view at the worst possible moment. The public response tells its own story. Major cities, including London and Manchester, have witnessed thousands taking to the streets in protest. These aren't just the usual political demonstrations, they're manifestations of genuine anger over economic hardships and what many perceive as fundamental failures in leadership. Starmer's economic promises don't exist in a vacuum. They're a transparent attempt to divert attention from the organisational chaos that has engulfed his party, while he talks about fiscal responsibility and economic growth. Behind closed doors, his authority is hemorrhaging at an alarming rate. The Conservative Party, despite its own challenges, has wasted no time exploiting these vulnerabilities. They're effectively portraying Labour as a party in disarray, led by a man whose own colleagues have lost faith in his vision and capabilities. The narrative of a directionless opposition struggling under weak leadership is gaining traction precisely because there's mounting evidence to support it. Just how bad is the situation within Labour's ranks? While Starmer stood before cameras announcing his economic vision, his own senior MPs were writing emails questioning his basic judgment and competence. These communications, never meant for public consumption, reveal a party not merely in disarray, but in active revolt, with several prominent figures ready to distance themselves from a leader they no longer trust. The recently leaked emails provide an uncensored window into the minds of Labour's top brass, and what they show is nothing short of political mutiny. Senior members of Starmer's own team have been expressing intense dissatisfaction with his leadership, particularly his handling of critical issues that have defined his tenure. These aren't minor grumblings or policy disagreements. They represent a fundamental loss of confidence in the man who claims to be ready to lead the country. What's particularly damning is how these communications expose the growing chasm between Starmer's carefully crafted public image and the private assessment of those who work closest with him. While the Labour leader presents himself as the steady hand Britain needs, his own colleagues are documenting their plans to abandon ship. Specific exchanges show MPs actively planning to distance themselves from Starmer, with discussions that hint at a coordinated revolt against his leadership, all happening while he pretends to be launching a unified election campaign. The timeline of this collapse is revealing. Many of these now disgruntled MPs were once Starmer's staunchest defenders and people who genuinely believed in his vision for Labour. Their gradual disillusionment speaks volumes about his inability to maintain trust even among natural allies. As each political challenge emerged, more supporters quietly stepped back, creating the vacuum of confidence we're now witnessing in these leaked communications. Rather than addressing these legitimate concerns, Starmer's inner circle attempted to suppress the leaks entirely. This pattern of controlling information, rather than confronting problems, has only deepened the rift. The emails reveal a leadership style that prioritizes image management over substantive engagement with difficult issues, exactly the criticism that has dogged Starmer throughout his tenure. As the dust settles on Starmer's announcement, we're left with a leader fighting not just for his political vision, but for his very survival. Historical precedents for such desperate maneuvers show mixed results at best. Some leaders have managed to regain momentum through bold calls for elections, while others have faced devastating backlash that accelerated their downfall. Starmer's leadership now faces unprecedented scrutiny. Westminster insiders are openly discussing the possibility of a leadership challenge, with critics suggesting the party is deliberately stalling to avoid electoral humiliation. What we're witnessing isn't merely political theatre, it's the potential unravelling of a political career. The coming weeks will be decisive. While news channels dissect economic plans and policy promises, they're missing the real story. Behind carefully worded press releases and staged photo opportunities lies a fundamental truth. Starmer's announcement wasn't a demonstration of strength, but rather a last-ditch effort to outmaneuver his own colleagues before they could move against him.